This is the Television Enthusiast Podcast, The Weekly Set.
Episode 16, recorded June 11, 2015. Hello and welcome to the TV Enthusiast Podcast, The Weekly Set. I am your host, Tyson Gifford. I am the editor-in-chief of TV Enthusiast. Joining me today are Kat Taylor.
Hi.
And Will Roerig.
Hello.
Okay, we haven't had a podcast in a couple of weeks. Sorry about that. We had some technical issues. The site was down, but we also had some other problems that kind of came up. So we've kind of gotten around that as best we can now. So this should be us returning back to form. As such, I figured we'd just kind of take it easy, just do like a kind of catch up on what we've been doing, talk a little bit about why the site went down and what's going on with that, and that's, talk about some of the articles that we got up now. So, let's just start off with what we've been watching recently. So, I'll start off with one of them, and we'll just kind of go freeform, not like go through everyone's, suggestions at once or something. So, recently, I actually wrote impressions for it when the site went down and wasn't able to kind of get them up and before the pilot, but we actually got our first screener, for the site, for Mr. Robot. It's now publicly available to everyone on YouTube. The series doesn't officially premiere until, June 24th, I believe. But they publicly released, the first episode on YouTube and a bunch of other streaming things. If you actually check the impressions article I wrote on the website, the entire episode is embedded in the article, so you can watch it right in the article.
Nice.
That's cool, yeah.
It's kind of a new way of doing things. I've been thinking for a while that this is like a smart thing that pretty much every show should do. Every show should make their pilot episode freely available pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, they really should.
I could see that, it's starting to move in that direction just because, just because of, how influential online is already becoming. There's so much that's already available online anyway.
Yeah, it's interesting seeing some of the kind of different maneuvers that, networks and, production companies are taking with this kind of stuff. I'm going to talk a little bit after I talk about Mr. Robot. I'm going to talk about Aquarius and what they did, which I thought was really interesting. But with Mr. Robot, they released the pilot about a month early, ahead of all these digital services. So it's a really good show. I got this as a screener and I'm like thinking, okay, this is going to be like how they had like Burn Notice and it was kind of like a MacGyver with spies. And then they had like, Royal Pains, and that was kind of like a MacGyver with concierge medicine. And I thought this was going to be like a MacGyver with hackers kind of thing. Like it was going to continue on that kind of lighthearted, kind of tonal thing that, USA has. It is not that at all. This is Fight Club. If you guys have seen Fight Club, if you guys like Fight Club, that's what this is. I mean, tonally, it is exactly like Fight Club. It's got the way the music cuts in, the narration, the kind of like dry sense of humor to it. It's everything's there is like Fight Club, basically.
Oh, wow.
It's very good.
Nice. That sounds good.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, in one way, like while watching it, I'm like, wow, they really took that Fight Club route, But I don't blame them for it, just because I think Fight Club kind of became this like iconic storytelling approach. And it's been ripped off so many times, but like nobody ever seems to like nail the tone that Fight Club was going for. I think this is one of the first ones I've ever seen that just nails it. And so it doesn't feel like that cheap kind of rip off. Like how when Spartacus started, there was a lot of kind of complaints initially that like, wow, they're just trying to like do 300 for TV.
Yeah.
And they had that kind of look to it, and it took the show a while to get kind of past that, and to really kind of show its own strengths. This is like right off the bat, like it nailed the tone, it got it. Hackers, or not just so much hackers, but just kind of computer experts are enjoying the show because it's actually kind of accurate. It doesn't have that kind of, Felicity on Arrow kind of way of like she can solve everything from her Surface tablet. there's like some real social engineering. There's real Linux code. It's all feels very authentic. It's just a really good show. It's it's a pleasure to know that like our first screener ended up being something so good.
That's cool.
Wait, a show about hacking with like actual hacking?
Yeah. Yeah. It's usually hacking is pretty painful to watch in movies or TV shows.
You mean the computer isn't magic and does anything you want it to?
No. Yeah.
Just as long as the person banging the keyboard with his fist is labeled as a genius.
Yeah. No, they're not Stephen Colberting like knocking their hands on the back of the keyboard. This is kind of legit stuff. It's like it demystifies it in a sense where, you know, a lot of real hacking is social engineering. You call somebody up or contact them and you fish for information, and then you use that information to kind of get more information, and so on and so on. And that's kind of what real hacking is, and that's in the show. You know, there is some computer wizardry to it as well, but it's all done in a very kind of realistic way. It's just really good. So that's kind of, I think, the thing from all this time off that I think I enjoyed the most, and I was so sad that our site kind of took a dump right when we had that time where we could have gotten it up early and had some discussion on that. Like, the site went down and I was like, no!
Oh, that's sucky timing.
That's sucky timing. It really is. Speaking of timing, like perfect timing, the site went up just in time for the Punisher news to break.
Oh, yes, I saw that.
And I was like, yes.
I think that was the first news story we got up since the site went up, so that was cool.
That was really cool. I was like so happy about that. I was like, yes.
That's good casting too. Shane from The Walking Dead.
Right?
This just seems like right for him.
He's a great pick for that. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Great pick.
He even has that like broken nose thing going on that like, you know, that just kind of gives like this legitimacy to his toughness. Did any of you guys see Mob City, the show that he had on TNT?
No.
Okay, he was actually pretty good in it. The show just kind of didn't go anywhere. You know, you could see it was gonna not go anywhere, but you could kind of get like a similar thing where he played a cop in that, but like a real kind of tough cop, and that's kind of what Punisher is. He was a cop, you know?
Yeah, he was a cop.
I mean, Shane was a cop too, but, you know, that's not exactly, you don't really want a Shane-like Punisher in that, you know?
No,
But yeah, I could totally see him as a Punisher. I think that's great casting. And I'm just excited that we have Punisher in that Marvel Netflix thing. Because we've been talking about that for a while, that it's just, after Daredevil, Punisher fits that world so well that it's awesome that they're going that route, that they're not trying to reboot it as a movie or do something else, that they're actually bringing him in on the TV show.
Yeah, they're doing what makes the most sense. Well, I like to think it's because Marvel listens to this podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah, I know.
Like those TVE guys, they got an idea.
Yeah, right. I like to cut their jib.
There's some scrappy guys there.
Well, we have gushed exuberantly about how much we love the Marvel Cinematic Universe, so you know.
Right, exactly. So, I mean, that was brilliant. I was, like, really happy for that news broke. I am totally excited to see Daredevil Season 2 now. It can't come soon enough for me now, because I really want to see this. I want to see John Barenthal's performance. I'm just so stoked.
Yeah, it's exciting. It looks really good. I also saw kind of a brief mention that Jessica Jones is definitely still slated for 2015. There's no official date, but we're getting that in 2015. They changed the title, or they just kind of subtracted the AKA. So
yeah,
it was
I
called
that. I'm kind of glad they did, because I felt like the AKA was kind of confusing.
Yeah, it just simplifies it, makes it easier.
Yeah, it does. It's like AKA. It's like, for people who don't, like, follow the comics, you know, that AKA kind of means nothing. And so, like, it is best to just simplify it and not potentially confuse people. So I agree with that name change.
Mm-hmm.
I really want to see that. I want to see how that turns out.
I just want to see all those Marvel Netflix series.
To be totally honest, I do. But hopefully, my best guess is if it's still slated for 2015, it's going to air in the fall, maybe September or October.
That would be a good time for it.
Yeah.
And then maybe like an early winter for Luke Cage.
Right.
Like January 2015 something, or 2016, something like that.
Are they going to spread out the release of each?
I don't know. It's interesting that they're already talking about Daredevil season. There's more news coming out of Daredevil season 2 than there is about
other shows.
I'm sure it's because it was such a success that they want to assure people, yes, there's going to be more. But I like the idea of them spacing it out because it gives each of them their own time to breathe. Because if Daredevil and Jessica Jones had come out at the same time, I think it would have been harder for us as a collective audience to concentrate on both of them. Whereas just Daredevil itself, it came out and everyone's just like, ooh, it's this shiny new thing. So, and then we can do the same with Jessica Jones in a few months and so on and so forth.
I just wonder if we're going to get Daredevil season 2 before we're going to get like the rest of the Defenders arcs.
You know, I was just thinking, I was thinking about that the other day, though. I was thinking with the Punisher announcement, I was thinking other characters I want to see enter the Marvel Cinematic Universe, like Ghost Rider or Blade. And obviously, are they going to have movies? Are they going to have Netflix series?
What's up? Marvel has the rights to Blade now, but what about Ghost Rider? Do they have the rights to that right now?
The last I heard they did. Yeah,
okay.
Because when was the last Ghost Rider movie? That was ages ago.
Who was that? That wasn't Fox, was it?
I think that was Fox.
Was it Fox? Wow, they've had a hard time with pretty much all of their properties except for X-Men.
Yeah, they really have. Yeah, I mean, now they're trying one last try with Fantastic Four. I think Fantastic Four is going to bomb. I haven't been too impressed with what I saw of that.
You're not alone from what I've seen of fan reactions.
But I was thinking, Netflix isn't like a typical network. They don't have to worry about having a schedule or fitting shows in a specific time slot. They could just put an unlimited amount of shows up there for people to watch, because Netflix puts something up and it's there indefinitely for you to watch at your own leisure. And so, theoretically, Netflix could, make 100 of these Marvel shows and have them all up at the same time.
Though, that's sounds really overwhelming. I do kind of worry about too much of a good thing.
Yeah.
I totally get why everyone's like, oh no, let's do this character too, and let's do this character too. I totally get that. But I do worry about it there being too much of a good thing. And also, the more that there are on screen, the more noise there's going to be, and the harder it is for anyone to stand out. I
think the key is, when you're doing all these different properties, is to find a unique hook between them, or a unique tone. If you're gonna do Ghost Rider, make it full supernatural horror, because there isn't anything like that within the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the Marvel.
Just hire Eric Kripke to do it.
hire Eric Kripke. I give it its own style, its own flavor, and then people who might not have been who wouldn't watch the Avengers might watch this and get interested in it. That's the way to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think by and large Marvel has done this, is that they hired smart people for most of their products. And I think that's why they've succeeded as well as they have.
Right.
The way I was thinking is that they should have considered their, besides Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., they should have considered their other Marvel series almost like movie event kind of things, and that they could do Daredevil season 2 doesn't necessarily come the year after Daredevil season 1.
Right.
You just kind of roll it out, and then you have Daredevil season 2 a few years later or something,
sure.
And same thing with Agent Carter, Agent Carter, it's really good. Maybe they'd have something else in the mid-season this year, and then have Agent Carter maybe the next year again, or something. But it seems like they're going more straight seasons, which is making me really curious about how they're going to go into this, into their Defenders plan. Are they going to do it like the MCU did, whereas like Iron Man had 2 movies, all the rest of them had 1, and then they went into Avengers? Or are they going to do it like, is this like really early information we're getting on Daredevil, and we're going to have already gone through the Defenders before Daredevil season 2 starts?
It's a good question. I don't know.
Because we haven't heard too terribly much about, what's the last one? It's, God, I can't even think of what the last one is. It's Daredevil, Jessica Jones, Luke Cage, and then, what's the last one again?
Oh, I'm not familiar.
Well, they just casted John Barenthal for, like, the Punisher in the new season of Daredevil. I think it's gotta be close to shooting if they're already casting actors for parts. I mean, because how long are they going to hold on to John Barenthal?
Yeah. Well, that's what I was wondering, because we've heard more about Daredevil season 2 than we've heard about the 4th series. Right. I just can't remember who was the 4th series again? It was
Iron Fist.
Iron Fist, that's it.
Yes.
The last I heard about Iron Fist was that they were interested in Ryan Phillippe.
That's what I heard too. Yeah, they're interested in Ryan Phillippe. Also, there was a rumor Benedict Cumberbatch was going to appear in Iron Fist as Doctor Strange.
That would be cool.
Yeah, that's cool. Interesting.
Yeah.
I want to see how that plays out. I mean, this was an interesting idea from the very beginning when we first heard about this Netflix Marvel deal, but now with them talking about Daredevil season 2 and they're not even through the first kind of like phase yet, it's like, oh, what's going on here? You know?
I know, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah, but I think that's it, because I think that's it. It was part because Daredevil was such a success. They want to capitalize on that as soon as possible. And also because then the Punisher announcement recently, I think, came before the other because it's such a big deal. It's it's newsworthy. It's like, because people have wanted this character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe for a long time now.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
and there's nowhere he fits better than in, like, you know, the universe that Daredevil's creating right now.
I mean, the thirst for the Punisher has been so strong, people were, like, speculating that a random armored car driver in Captain America 2 was actually the Punisher.
At a certain point, we as fans must just collectively drive executives crazy.
Yeah, really.
But you know the executives are probably having fun too, leaving little breadcrumbs that aren't even actually for anything, just kind of to mess with fans.
Yeah.
Oh, that's just mean.
That's totally what I would do though. If I was an executive and I would totally leave, like, I'd make them very, very subtle. Like, you know, so that the ones that actually get them going are like the conspiracy theorists, like crazy fans that like map out like these huge elaborate charts to explain things. And I'd give just enough credibility for them to like make something out of it. And then who knows, if it became popular enough, implement it.
Right, there you go.
So let's talk about what else we've been watching. So, Kat, what have you been watching in the last 3 weeks or so?
In the last 3 weeks. Well, I caught up on Broadchurch. I watched all of that second season, which I thought was pretty good.
Yeah.
Let's see. And then I'm still behind on iZombie. Like, I know both of you have gushed about it, and that's totally cool. I have to admit, the procedural elements have really turned me off to it. I've gotten really bored with it. So I have a backlog of about 3 episodes, and I'll sit down and watch them eventually, but I don't really feel a lot of motivation to do it.
It gets more serialized towards the end.
Well, I want it to be more character-based. I would kill for that show to be more invested in its character relationships, which is something Veronica Mars was really good at.
Well, it kind of is. Like, it's getting to that point where, like, kind of stuff is coming together between characters.
I hope so, because even the whole Blaine is evil and he's killing people, blah, blah, blah. Like, even that thread doesn't really interest me in and of itself. I would far rather the show was doing more character-based work, and it really hasn't so far. So I'm like, okay, it has a charming tone, but I'm not really feeling a drive to watch it, so I'm behind on that. So mostly, I've just been watching, Gilmore Girls on Netflix, and then I'm doing the rewatch of all of Arrow.
What's going on with Gilmore Girls? There's kind of something I've been seeing a lot on social networks
so they
recently.
just had a reunion panel down at ATX.
That's what it was.
Like, everyone except for Edward Herman, who sadly passed away a few months ago, and Melissa McCarthy, for obvious reasons, is not available. And then I know there were rumors that there might be some kind of a movie, but then Amy Sherman Palladino said, not at present, but.
I'm between where Tyson and Kat are with iZombie, I think. I'm like in between, because I get like where you're coming from, Tyson, where like it's, the characters are charming, they're totally cool, I like the lead, and then I get where Kat's come from, which there's too much procedural, there's not enough interplay with the characters, you know, like, where you'd like to see that more. I do like that we got this serialized element with Dwayne and, the evil zombie and what he's doing. I hope that's leading to something cool. I don't know at this point.
The season ends strong. So the season's over now. It just concluded this week. It ends pretty strong. Like it does kind of, you know, like you kind of see everything kind of pull together more as far as like, you know, it kind of had all these like, it's almost like Liz has like 3 different lives that aren't really intersecting, you know, and they're all kind of being pulled together now. So it's stronger. It's getting a little bit more serialized. Of course, it's because it's the end of the season. That doesn't necessarily mean like season 2, it's going to keep going in that direction, you know, it won't necessarily do that.
Yeah,
you
that's
know, but
what I'm worried about is the whole murder plotline of the week. I can watch that from 20 procedurals over on CBS alone.
Yeah.
Like, I want this show to be different. And I guess I may be a tad disappointed because Veronica Mars did the exact opposite. Like, Veronica Mars did really interesting stuff with its Case of the Week stuff. And it managed to be really character-based at the same time. And it also had this really sharp and insightful social commentary. And it managed to drive the Lily Payne murder plotline. Like, Veronica Mars was a lot defter and more engaging. Like, I think Liv is a charming lead. I'm with you there. I wish the show did more.
No, yeah, I agree with you. There isn't like any sort of commentary with iZombie. There isn't like any social commentary that I've seen so far, or any kind of commentary really. And that's also a huge weak point of the show, I believe.
Well, they've brought in another villain now. So there's another villain that's kind of clear and strong as well. And it's interesting, like I said, they're tying in some of these kind of case of weeks into that. Like, and so it's kind of like more of the stuff starting to kind of come together. And it's actually taking some kind of loose ties from a little bit earlier in the season and pulling those in too. So things are kind of pulling in together a little bit tighter. You know, like it's showing kind of like that they're all kind of in this like basically a small area. They're like in Seattle. So they're like all within this kind of thing. So you have these kind of 3 different lives basically that Liv is leading, and it's starting to they're starting to cross over and affect each other more now.
Okay.
And so it's getting a little bit better. Like I said, that's no indication that season 2 is going to be like directly continuing from that and keep going, because it's the end of a season. So that means, you know, the major kind of stories of that season have to kind of escalate.
Right.
Yeah, sure. No, well, I mean, I'll definitely watch the last 3 episodes. I'm just feeling a tad lethargic about the series. And then I got caught up in other stuff because, like I said, I'm doing Gilmore Girls, and I'm also doing a rewatch of all of Arrow. And I'm like, I'd rather watch another episode of Arrow than another episode of iZombie. That's how indifferent I am to iZombie, unfortunately.
I haven't been watching much myself. Well, like I lost all ability to watch things for a week there. And,
that sucks.
Yeah.
You've been watching Game of Thrones, because we've been keeping up on that.
Yep, I've been watching Game of Thrones. That's about it. I mean, I was trying to keep up on iZombie. I fell behind on that. I still haven't watched any additional episodes of iZombie since I lost my internet. Because I just haven't like Cat, I just haven't really felt terribly compelled to. I just go on Hulu and I see it there and I'm like, I don't know. And
you gotta watch Hannibal.
I did watch it. I watched it.
Okay. Well, the second episode aired tonight, so...
Okay, so I have to watch the second, but I did watch Hannibal, so I watched Game of Thrones and Hannibal. And, Hannibal is just as good as I remembered it.
Yeah. It's one of those shows, like, where, like, you forget, it's like, you don't forget how beautiful and, like, how beautifully put together the show is, but it's kind of like the impact of how beautifully put together it is, like, wears out because it's been a while. Right. And then you see it again and it's like, oh yeah, that's right. You know, this is like amazingly put together, you know?
So it sounds like you have a solid, even though you're only watching 2 shows, it sounds like you're watching 2 really, really, really good shows.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying what I'm watching. We only have one more episode of Game of Thrones left, unfortunately. But
yeah. But Hannibal's just starting, so.
Hannibal's just starting, so we got that. And True Detective's gonna start next month. I'm gonna check that out. I don't know if that's gonna be as strong as season 1. So I'm kinda on the fence about that. But I'm definitely gonna watch True Detective when that premieres after Game of Thrones ends.
That premieres alongside The Brink and Ballers, which are the 2 new half-hour shows on HBO. Ballers is like a sports thing. The only thing that's kind of interesting about that at all is that The Rock's in it.
Yeah.
But The Brink actually looks kind of interesting. So I kind of want to see what that turns out to be.
Yeah, definitely. The Brink does look interesting. It looks like kind of like a dark comedy. Might be pretty good.
Yeah. I actually saw Tim Robbins on Conan the other night, and they showed like a clip from it, and it's looking pretty good. It's, you know, he's kind of playing somebody that's like, he's in a political cabinet role, and he's regretting it because he's realizing he actually has to do work, and he doesn't want to do anything. And so that seems to be kind of like a big part about the show, is that you have these people in these really powerful positions, and they're really just kind of, you know, normal people, and they don't really even want to be there and stuff. So it seems to be playing on that for its comedy. So I'm interested in seeing what that show actually is, you know. But yeah, True Detective looks good, but, you know, after the first season, it's hard to expect something to live up to that, you know.
Right. Exactly.
Especially with Matthew McConaughey's, you know, performance was so good.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot to live up to. It's gonna be it's a new cast. It's a completely new story. I mean,
it's got that same nihilism, you know. You watch the trailers, it still has that same nihilism that made the first season so good.
I hope it doesn't have that nihilism just because that was popular in like the
I think it's just
season.
The voice of the writer.
Right. I'm just hoping it's not nihilistic just because, you know, I mean,
yeah, because
that would be like really dumb. I mean, because, you know, I want the story, if it's going to be a new story, I want to have its own voice, and it's like, its own tone, and not try to desperately play off of the first season, or try to be too much like the first season just for the sake of it.
I mentioned Fight Club earlier when we were talking about, Mr. Robot, but I think that, you know, the author of Fight Club, can't remember his last name, his first name's Chuck.
Palahniuk.
That's it. Yeah. If you've seen any of his other books, they all kind of have like something kind of tonally similar to Fight Club, but they stand on their own as well.
Right. I
think that's kind of what I'm expecting from True Detective. I'm expecting it to be nihilistic because I think that's just the writer's, that's his voice.
Right. If it's the product of the writer's voice, that's fine. That's great. You know, because it should be all about the writer telling the story he wants to tell. I'm just saying, you know, if it's just that because of commercial interest, you know, then that's where it's going to falter.
Yeah. Like how True Blood kind of fell apart in its later seasons when it started being less of a satire and started becoming more of what it was satiring.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
I feel like Grey's Anatomy kind of did that. Like Grey's Anatomy
a lot of
was
shows
this
do
really
that, unfortunately.
cheeky, funny show in its early seasons. that kind of had fun with all of its melodrama, and then it just evolved into melodrama.
Believe it or not, that was Desperate Housewives too. The first season of Desperate Housewives is actually really good.
Yeah.
And then it started to become everything it was parodying, basically.
Yeah, like first season of Desperate Housewives is hilarious because it's so tongue-in-cheek soap opera, and then it just kind of turned into a soap opera.
Yeah. It was kind of like it was a satire of like the Melrose Place type, nighttime soaps, and then it became Melrose Place, like by the end, know.
And that's a and that's a problem. That's that's what you would call show decay or something. And that's a problem with something like that, where you get later seasons where you get writers on there that probably, or people running it that probably don't understand that it's supposed to be a satire.
Or they get pressure to, adjust it.
To adjusting,
They're probably worried that audiences are having a hard time following it, like getting that it's supposed to be satire.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What they do is they find out that the elements that they were kind of seeing as more like frivolous parody parts are the parts that actually became really popular. And so they're like, okay, I guess we have to strengthen those. And then by doing so, they lose that was a joke.
I also wonder if it's just hard to hold on to, because as much as I enjoyed Desperate Housewives, I kind of feel like it lost the sharp satirical edge even in second season. Like second season, the first season was so good, quickly. It didn't know where to go from there once it had resolved things.
Yeah, even Kyle MacLachlan wasn't able to save Desperate Housewives.
Oh, yeah. which is a strange, rare thing to say, because Kyle MacLachlan is awesome.
Yes, he is. So speaking of satire, I saw the news that Will Ferrell and Kristen Wiig are doing a Lifetime movie.
Can you please explain that to me? Are they doing it ironically?
I think they're doing it ironically.
But it actually is on Lifetime.
It actually is on Lifetime, and it's going to be I
hope that the actors are doing it ironically, but that the movie itself is devoid of irony.
Okay, right. But does Lifetime know who Kristen Wiig and Will Ferrell are?
From what I've actually been hearing, my sister says there's a show on Lifetime that she's watching now, and she like me, we would always go every time my mom would get hooked into Lifetime movies and stuff.
Yeah.
But she said there's actually a show she's watching on Lifetime now that's actually really good, and it still doesn't sound that interesting to me, but maybe Lifetime's starting to smarten up, maybe they have some new talent in their executive pool, and they're starting to kind of have a little bit more fun and not take themselves too seriously.
I would love that. I still feel like there's a difference between creating more interesting content and creating content that makes fun of all of your most traditional content.
Yeah, exactly. I know. They're going to air a parody of their movies on their network. And
what it kind of makes me think of is apparently I'm assuming both of you are familiar with when Stephen Colbert did the White House Correspondents' Dinner about 10 years ago, and apparently the guy who picked him out, all he knew was that Colbert was something of a pundit, and he was a comedian, so he said, he sounds great, and he did no research into who Colbert was. So surprise!
He basically believed Colbert was really a conservative.
Yeah. And boy, were they in for surprise. So I kind of feel like Lifetime might have done this. Will Ferrell and Kristen Wiig, sure, those names sound familiar. We don't know at all what they do, but let's hire them.
Like I said, I'm really hoping that it is a straightforward, bad, mid-1990s Lifetime movie. To the title. I hope it has a title like Her Daughter's Killer or something like that, which is what all the Lifetime movies are like.
It does have one of those titles. Let me see. Hold up. If I totally forgot the title, but.
And I hope it's serious, Will Ferrell is seriously playing an abusive husband or something like that. It's seriously done like that. It's not played for comedy at all. That would make it even more hilarious.
It's called A Deadly Adoption.
That's fantastic.
Oh, God. I hope they play it straight.
It's
That just would make it so funny. That would, honestly, that would be the funniest thing they could do, is to play it straight.
It totally would. It's like, my sister and I watched an Airplane a few weeks ago, and it made me really miss deadpan, because Airplane mastered the art of the deadpan. Like, the fact that everyone in that movie plays everything straight is what makes it so hilarious.
Apparently the description is it's inspired by a true story, and is a dramatic thriller starring Will Ferrell and Kristen Wiig as a successful couple who take in and care for a pregnant woman during the final months of her pregnancy, with the hopes of adopting her unborn child.
So this has potential, but on the flip side, I oftentimes find that, like, at least half, if not more, of what Will Ferrell does is almost unwatchable for me.
Right.
You know? It's weird. It's like it's either like it's too far, or it just doesn't nail the tone right. Some of the stuff that he does, I find absolutely hilarious. Right. I love watching his persona, just like whenever he does an interview or something. But most of his movies and stuff, I'm just not into at all. And it's like the rare exceptions that are really good. And like I said, I so hope that they just play this straight.
Yeah.
I loved Anchorman. And I mean,
see, I'm mixed on Anchorman, because I think Anchorman was kind of boring to me at first, and then all of a sudden it had some moments that just made me bust out laughing. But like I was never into their NASCAR movie they did, or
oh my god, I love that movie.
Talladega Nights.
Talladega Nights. I think it's because of Will Ferrell and his co-star.
John C. Reilly.
John C. Reilly just killed it in that movie. He was hilarious.
I like both of them, but for some reason, I don't know, when they lay it on too thick, it's
I did not like Grown Ups, like their second get together.
The one part about that was good though was
not Grown Ups, but
Adam Scott, when he was in it, and like they had like his family singing in the car, and he was like militantly controlling them to make them like sing perfectly and stuff.
Oh yeah,
that was hilarious. That part,
hilarious.
You know,
I thought after Talladega Nights, I thought another movie with Will Ferrell and John C. Reilly that was going to be hilarious, but that movie just fell completely flat for me, and I was like,
see, my favorite Will Ferrell movie is still probably Old School.
Old School. Okay, I actually haven't seen that one.
I like him in a smaller role like that, because he's kind of more of a supporting role.
Right.
You know?
Right.
I kind of like him in that kind of position more often, I think. Because for me, it's like, he's almost like too crazy, and you need that like in smaller doses. Like, I can't take a whole movie on him, you know?
Right.
But let's get back on topic of TV here. So, before we talk about the Will Ferrell connected cinematic universe. So, have any of you guys been watching anything else this week? Or these last couple weeks?
No, just those shows for me. The rest is.
You know what I checked out just recently was Sense8, the new series from the Wachowski siblings.
How was it?
Oh, okay.
You know what? Actually, before I watched it, I read a review that kind of like really soured me on it. I was like, this is gonna be bad, you know? And then when I watched it, I kind of had those feelings through the whole first episode, where I was kind of just like real hesitant to get attached to it. And then by like 2 or 3 episodes in, because I watched I think 3 episodes, I started to really like it.
See, that's why I mean, I don't read reviews of like TV shows.
Oh, they can flavor it for you. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, they could really kind of like set expectations, and I like to go into something new like that with as little like bringing my own expectations to it, not somebody else's opinion into it, because I want to form my own opinions and see what I think.
Oh no,
and so I like to do that. I don't like to read reviews, and half the time I disagree with reviews anyway. I mean, I'll go watch the Avengers, I'll say that was awesome, that was better than the last one, and then there'll be all these reviews that say, oh man, that fell short of whatever, and I'm like, no, you're totally wrong.
I get that.
Yeah.
I get that. I think for me, whether or not I read reviews really depends. But Sense8 was better than you were expecting?
Yeah, but that's because my expectations were severely lowered by the review. So I don't know, like, I'd be interested to hear what you guys think of it. Honestly, I think that, like, the way it starts is kind of weak, because it starts kind of on the bigger concept of it. And I didn't think that paid off as well. I think where it became more interesting is when it started focusing more on kind of the individual characters and kind of like less about the bigger story, but more about how these little individual events in their life that are influenced by the bigger story.
Oh, I like that. Because I like it when something's conceptually driven, but also character based.
Yeah.
I think sometimes conceptually driven, it's easy for the concept side of things to overtake the show. So I always appreciate it when they're willing to base it in character.
And that's what it felt like at the beginning. Like, through most of the first episode, it felt like that the concept was overdriving. But as it started getting into, like, more of the episodes, you start getting, like, some of the characters are really kind of charming and interesting. I don't want to spoil it, so I'm trying to think, like, there's a character in it that's like a lover of another character that I thought, like, he's awesome. He has great reactions and, like, he's just really cool. And then there's another character that, is having, like, a really emotional kind of journey right now, but it's like, I was watching it with my sister and she pointed out that, like, it's kind of ridiculous. Like, some of the things that are happening in the show, like, the way, like, you know, the cops and the criminals are, like, so against each other that, like, the cops are kind of shocked when one of the other cops wants to, like, save a kid that was shot because the kid was a criminal, and they're like, well, why are you helping him or something? And she's like, I get that, you know, there's some issues between cops, but that's, like, just to act like it's a shocking thing to be helpful, you know? Or, like, you know, the hospital's all, oh, we don't admit gunshot wounds or something, and she's like, what? But, like, so it's kind of, like, weird at first because the show kind of has this very, like, modern feeling to it. But if you think about it from the lens of this is the Wachowski siblings, then you kind of, like, accept that it's kind, even though it looks modern, it's kind of dystopic. In this weird way. And once you kind of accept that, it gets a lot better.
Okay.
It's kind of like you need to get over that aspect. And once you do, it's easier to watch. It's more, you know, interesting.
Huh.
I don't know. I'm not, like, a big fan of the Wachowskis. I like some of their work. I mean, I liked the first Matrix, you know, along with everybody else. I like V for Vendetta. I don't think I've liked too much else of what they've done. The Matrix sequels just were not anything. Yeah, no.
They like made themselves and killed themselves the same franchise.
Yeah.
It's too bad. I never saw the Matrix sequels. I've just heard how terrible they are.
Well, that's good. See, so you can just kind of leave everything else that happened to your imagination.
Yes, I have happy associations with the Matrix, and I feel kind of bad for the Wachowskis. I think they're really daring and inventive, but it seems like they tend to overextend themselves.
Yeah.
I think so. They went, like, too in with, like, all the philosophy and stuff, and it's like, it's to the point where it gets overwhelming and pretentious, and you just, I mean, I appreciate the idea that it's just tone it down a little bit.
On this series, they're working with Tom Tykwer again, who's a German director that they've actually been kind of collaborating with off and on for a while now. They worked with him on, I don't remember what was the first thing they worked with him on, but they definitely worked with him on Cloud Atlas. He's a director that I like his pre-Wachowski stuff a lot more than his post-Wachowski stuff. But I can see a little bit of his flavor coming into, Sense8. He did Run Lola Run, which was kind of like the one that people knew about him before the Wachowski siblings, but.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I do remember reading about that.
Yeah. So I really like that director. I liked him before. He did a movie called The Princess and the Warrior, if you ever want to kind of watch like an interesting kind of just like modern, somewhat fairy tale, but not really kind of thing, check that out. It's a German movie called The Princess and the Warrior. It's amazing. Yeah, it's just so good. But it's, I've been kind of like lukewarm on his stuff since kind of he's been getting a little bit more mainstream, and since he's been they've hooked up with the Wachowski brothers, but I can see a little bit of his kind of essence, I guess, coming through in Sense8, cause he's involved in that as well.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Let me see. Oh yeah. Well, I was also going to talk about, Aquarius. Now, I've been watching Aquarius. I don't really feel like there's anything necessary to talk about it. It's pretty, samey. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just, I don't want to waste the time to talk about it.
Okay. That's a ringing endorsement. I'm going to watch it right now based on that.
It's fine. It's perfectly serviceable. That'll be my quote for the poster.
It's got David Duchovny.
It's all Aquarius.
You like,
it's all TV Enthusiast says it's perfectly serviceable.
It's got David Duchovny. You like David Duchovny? X-Files? Anybody?
I like X-Files. I'm afraid I don't have very positive perceptions of David Duchovny.
But the one thing I think is really interesting that I did want to bring up about Aquarius is when I mentioned Mr. Robot and how they released the pilot a month early and to like all these digital streaming services and how that was really kind of interesting. Aquarius did something even more interesting.
They did. They released.
So at the moment they aired the first episode of the series on NBC, they put the entire season online on NBC's website.
Wow.
But they're still airing the episodes week by week on TV.
That's an interesting idea.
Yeah, I'm really interested in hearing the data that comes out of that.
I actually like that because I have mixed feelings about the Netflix model of releasing everything at once. I totally get where it's coming from. I enjoy binge watching for a lot of reasons. But I feel like sometimes what we do is we rob individual episodes and individual moments of being a kind of shared event. Kind of like the last finale was a shared event, because it happened at one time and we all shared it at one time. And when you release it all at once, you kind of rob pop culture of those moments. So I like that it's kind of allowing for both of that, depending on how you want to approach it.
Mm-hmm.
Right, definitely. And it's like, I mean,
it's fascinating though. I want to see the numbers. I hope NBC gives out some data on that, because I'm just really interested in like how that worked. Did a lot of people check in? Because it's not like people go, I'm going to go watch some content online. I'm going to check NBC.com.
Right,
it's
exactly.
Not a common destination for that stuff. It's not like they're releasing it on Netflix as a binge thing, or they're releasing it on Hulu. They're doing it on their own website, which kind of doesn't have a common viewership like that. So.
I don't know if they're trying to like.
That's true.
I don't know if they're trying to beef up the viewership on their website, because as we realized this week, Hannibal isn't on Hulu, and last time I checked, NBC was like one of the partners of Hulu. Most of their stuff is up on there. But
I think that has to do with the deal with Amazon, because Amazon Prime streams the first 2 seasons, and even though they're not streaming them live, I'm betting that just the fact that Hulu is a direct competitor to Amazon Prime, I think might be like a conflict in the deal.
Oh, maybe. That's a shame if so,
That
because
makes sense.
yeah. That makes sense. That's a shame if so, because, Hulu's not going to be streaming the new episodes as they air. Amazon isn't going to be streaming the new episodes as they air. So it's kind of like, that doesn't serve anybody any good, but.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. It seems like it's a contract issue to me. I can't imagine any other reason. I don't know how much of the rights NBC owns on Hannibal, because I know, I believe most of the funding actually comes from an independent German company. And some of it comes from some other countries as well. So, I don't know if that deal is made by NBC or if that's made by, the production company that might be somewhat funded elsewhere.
Oh, that's a good point too. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I haven't thought of
complicated TV business.
Yeah, complicated TV business crap. But they're streaming on NBC.com, so it still works out for me. So
yeah, and I don't think you have to authenticate either on there, do you?
No, I don't. And
that's good. That means that even if you don't have cable, you can watch it. Yeah. Because I know some places, like I think on CW, you have to authenticate.
You do.
To watch their stuff, which means even though you can watch their stuff on their website, you have to actually have a cable subscription or something.
And you know what the fun part about that
really?
is?
No, because I've been watching stuff on CW website for a while, and I never had to authenticate.
Oh, you didn't?
Oh, wow, okay.
Huh.
And you know what?
Maybe I'm wrong.
And you know what?
I know, what I know is that, like, for instance, ABC and Fox, I believe, what it is you have to authenticate, otherwise you have to wait a week until after the episode is aired in order to get access to it.
Right. Mm-hmm. And you know what the fun part about authentication for me is even when I have Time Warner, so even if I do have cable, I go on there, Time Warner is not an option for authentication, so I can't, yeah, I know. And so I can't get into those streaming sites anyway. And
the cable business. It's so wonderful, isn't it?
Yes, it really is. So every time I'm like...
Those glorious monopolies. Well, thankfully they're becoming less and less relevant.
Yeah, thankfully. I pretty much kicked cable in favor of just having internet because I realized I don't watch stuff on my cable subscription anymore. I don't watch stuff. I watch everything on my computer through the internet.
Yeah, you get Hulu, Netflix, Amazon.
Yeah, HBO Now.
HBO Now, and Showtime's coming that way too.
Yeah.
So if there is a the cool thing about that is like if there is a big show on Showtime you want to watch, you could just subscribe for the months at a time, and then
Yeah, and then watch the show and then kick it off. You don't have to subscribe for a year or something.
They don't make it a nightmare to unsubscribe like you would if you had to get out of your cable.
No, you just stop paying it, and then there you go. You're unsubscribed. Good. Yeah.
So thankfully there's that movement in that direction, Showtime just announced, I believe, kind of their pricing and everything for their service, which is like HBO's Now service. And that it's coming out kind of everywhere soon. CBS has one like that now. That one kind of seems a little weird. It seems odd to pay for a network channel.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about that.
Isn't that the whole point of networks, is that they're free?
Yeah, they're over the air kind of thing. But they're offering it, I guess, so.
I mean, paying for Hulu is already outrageous enough. I mean, the fact that they will refuse to remove ads for paying customers is like...
Yeah. I kind of feel sorry for Hulu because they're in this weird position because, unlike Netflix has kind of moved where their dominant content is their original programming.
Yeah.
And so as deals expire for them, they're just like, well, who cares?
Yeah.
We're just going to premiere 7 new series this week. And that's what Netflix is doing. So they're kind of in a healthy position for themselves with that. Hulu's kind of in a bad position. They're really reliant on all of these old media companies.
Right.
And kind of placating them, basically.
Yeah.
So that's gotta be a nightmare job.
That's gotta be. It's just terrible. And another thing I hate about Hulu is they're only allowed to have 5 episodes of any given season up at a time. The current season you're following, they can only have 5 episodes up at a time. So
and that's not Hulu's choice. That's all those network contracts.
I know. I think I think we are well past the point where we should continue to be doing that. I think at this point, if you're going to have episodes online, why only the last 5? I mean, if I got into a season in a show late in the season, I think that's just going to drive more people to piracy.
Yeah.
It is.
Well, it is, and it has historically in the past.
It happened to me, like, with Arrow, because I got into Arrow late. I started watching the first season on Netflix, because it was on Netflix. And I was like, wow, because I'd written it off at first as, like, our dumb CW show, like Smallville Part 2, Electric Boogaloo. But I figured, like, my first impression was, this is a spin-off of Smallville. It's going to be really cheesy and stupid. It's on the CW. I don't want to deal with this. And, and then somebody said, that Arrow show is really awesome. And I'm like, really? I thought it was going to be stupid. And they're like, no, it's on Netflix. Check it out. And I'm like, okay.
I remember the outrage that they recast Oliver Stone. Or Oliver Queen.
Oliver Queen.
Of course.
Oliver Stone.
Of
yes,
course.
Oliver Stone's an Arrow too, didn't you know?
Oh, yeah.
Character.
But, like,
he's this very liberal director.
Is that an alternate universe?
But
It's an alternate universe version of the Green Arrow.
Yeah, where Oliver Stone, instead of, like, going out and fighting crime by shooting arrows, he goes out and fights crime by shooting movies.
But the point is, like, I got into Arrow because it was up on Netflix, and I didn't have to go out of my way to check it out. I didn't have to, it was there, and I could just check it out at my leisure, and if I hated it, I hated it. If I loved it, I loved it. And I loved it. And I watched the whole first season on Netflix. And so I wanted to get into season 2, so I went on to Hulu. There was like the last 2 episodes of season 2 up on Hulu. That was it. That's all you could watch. And I'm like, really?
I know.
Yeah,
they're not making it easy to catch up on series. And it feels like that's more and more the mentality is they want people to catch up on series. Like, I think a really good example of this is,
well, they don't have reruns anymore, so.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
exactly.
As of June, ABC has already added second season of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. to Netflix streaming. And I'm positive the reason why they did that is because fewer people watched second season, but everyone who did said, whoa, that turned into a really good show. And they're wanting new people to come into the show and to be able to watch both seasons. And they want them to be able to access that as soon as possible, because if they can, then they're more likely to come and watch the third season. So, like,
yeah,
I guess
you have to give them time to catch up.
Yeah, I'm sure there are behind-the-scenes decisions going on here that I'm not aware of, but I still wish that more of the networks were making it easier for us to have legal means to catch up on series well before the new seasons begin, because I feel like a lot of the current modes are really outdated.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunately encouraging piracy.
Yeah.
We're in a very interesting time with TV right now. There has never been this much flux in this industry than there has been in this, like, in just right now. And what's happening right now with TV is crazier than anything that's happened in this industry since it started.
and a little secret about how I managed to catch up with Arrow when I was so behind is as soon as season 2 hit Netflix, I marathoned season 2, went through that as fast as I could, and then I ended up pirating the episodes that were missing from Hulu by the time I was done. I just said, what, forget it, I'm just gonna pirate this stuff, because Hulu had already erased 3 episodes of the third season by the time I finished. Yeah.
That's frustrating. Well, for what it's worth, I remember when they released the list of the top 10 pirated shows on television last year, unsurprisingly, Arrow was on that list. So,
Game of Thrones was, like, right at the top.
Well,
Game of Thrones and Walking Dead.
Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones definitely takes that crown, and then, of course, The Walking Dead afterwards. But I did notice that both Flash and Arrow were on that list.
Yeah. Anything that's got more of a serialized story is going to be heavily pirated if it's not fairly available for people to check out.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
I was lucky with Arrow. I watched all of first season, and then, and my sister bought second season, like, right as it came out, and so I told her I'd watch first season, and she's like, oh, yes, please. watch second season. I want to talk to you about the series. I didn't have to wait.
Yeah. So, I'm going to talk a little bit about kind of the site going down and kind of what we had. I mentioned a little bit when we were talking about Mr. Robot, but all of the sites in the Enthusiast Media Network went down a couple weeks back. It was pretty bad. The site owner happened to be kind of away on a Jewish holiday at the time with no device on him to learn, so he didn't even know what was going on. Well, we were all flipping out going, what the hell's going on with the site? He was off with no contact. He came back to that great surprise of the entire network being down, and quickly went to work trying to get everything back up. That, of course, caused all sorts of other problems. They were in the middle of changing servers, and there were issues with that. There are issues with the domain name changes. We got the site back up about a week ago, but we didn't have any back-end access, which meant even though the site was up and you guys could check it out, we couldn't read anything on the site, or we couldn't add anything new to the site. In addition to that, some of the content that was posted just before the site went down was just lost. It was gone. I had written an article about rape on Game of Thrones, gone. The whole article just disappeared. Wasn't on the servers, had to look up my rough draft that I had and refix it up and re-add it back in. That's up now. It's kind of less relevant than it was when that episode had just aired and it was kind of more biting commentary at the time. Now it's kind of...
Everybody just has kind of forgotten about that now.
Yeah, all the kind of fervor is going to die down a little.
I feel like there's still discussion to be had because George R. R. Martin just a few days ago gave some interview where he was defending the amount of violence against women in the show. Or I guess more specifically the book series. I guess not as much the show. So I feel like it's still a somewhat relevant topic. But
it's where it's a little bit less relevant is a lot of my points that I was trying to make ended up actually kind of being proven true, and then that actually it made it less of a discussion and more like a statement of what everybody already knew. Because like the episodes that came out afterwards, kind of my point was that people thought that because they had panned away from the scene, so they didn't actually show the rape, and they were focusing on a different character who was seeing it, that they were turning the rape story into his story instead of hers. And so they were using it as like his redemption. And I wrote in my article that what I felt they were doing is they were showing that he had something similar happen to him, similar to a rape, basically, as far as emotional consequences go. And he was completely broken by it. And I said, I don't think she will be. And I think that's the point, is they're trying to show that she's stronger than he was.
Oh, I like that, actually.
Yeah. And that point has kind of just been, slowly proven true, not like in an aha moment, but just kind of through the course of the next couple episodes, it's kind of become clear that that's the case.
That's actually really interesting.
Yeah. So,
that's cool that your article, even though sadly it was lost in the change over, that's cool that it was kind of prescient in its own way.
Yeah, I'm proud that I got that up there. I'm upset that it wasn't able to get read.
Aww. Yeah,
when it was most relevant. Yeah. So that is up now. If anybody wants to read that, it's basically my kind of views on rape and fiction and on Game of Thrones and everything with that. So
for what it's worth, I read both George R. R. Martin's comments and I read your article before it was lost, and I largely agreed with both of it. I think as long as you're careful with the topic and you're not exploitative, whatever that word would be, I think it can be a useful thing. And I really liked George R. R. Martin's comment that he's like, it would be dishonest in the historical context to not have this, because let's not whitewash history here. Let's be honest about the fact that these atrocities absolutely would have occurred.
Oh, yeah. Big time.
People in the Middle Ages were not the most respectful of women.
No. And here's what I like about Game of Thrones, just from what I know of it. I've only read the first book. I mean, is like that, the women are victimized, but they're not victims, you know?
Right.
Like,
Mhm.
Arya and Daenerys and Cersei are still really remarkable people who have managed to thrive in this society. So, like, I think if that's all there was to them, I would take issue with it. But there's so much more to them than just that.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. That's how I feel. It's,
the show.
I feel that it's, you know, like George R. R. Martin said, it would be dishonest, not just from the perspective of the era, but from the characters too. Like, people say, like, you know, why did it have to happen? Why did, you know, blah, blah, blah. Why didn't, they could have just made it that she was having sex with him, knowing that she had to in order to accomplish her goals and stuff. And I'm like, that would be dishonest to the character that was raping her.
Yeah.
Because the character that's raping her is a sexual sadist. And he would not be satisfied with her taking pleasure from it.
Right.
He would have to, if she was fine with it, he would have done something to make it horrible. You know, because that's who he is. That's who he is as a character. And if you deny that, then you're not being true to his character. And if you're not being true to his character, then you're diminishing all of the horrible things he's already done.
And from the sound of it, the way you're describing how the storyline plays out, it might have potentially undermined the rest of her storyline. Because if then in turn it's showing that she's able to endure this better than he did, shows how much more remarkable of an individual she is than he. So
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's you know, it's up on the side if you want to read it. I try to be as tasteful as I can, but if you are offended, let me know. I was really struggling with that one. I'm like, man, I really don't want to like kick a hornet's nest on this one, but I wanted to get my opinion across, and I was trying to do it as in the most respectful way I could. So. Check it out if you guys get the chance.
I'm kind of surprised. Last episode they burnt an innocent little girl alive, and no controversy. Oh,
there's been a little bit on that, but not in the same scale.
Yeah, I haven't heard like much about that. I was like kind of surprised. I was like, really?
Yeah.
I mean, but.
I think people see that scene. There were some people speaking out about that scene. It seems to be kind of more of the vocal minority on that side.
I think that was.
It's kind of being more accepted as like a horrible thing that happened in fiction rather than, you know, exploitation.
Right. I mean,
it feels like Game of Thrones is constantly courting controversy without necessarily meaning to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I actually read an article that somebody else had written from like a very feminist perspective of what happened in Game of Thrones that was in favor of the rape having occurred on screen. And one of her points that she brought up that I thought was really interesting was that the entire nature of the Game of Thrones books is like, going against these stereotypical, cliches and tropes of fantasy fiction. So, you know, there is no last minute rescue by the hero. You know, that doesn't happen. You know, it's like basically taking these kind of tropes and these ideas like, oh, this guy, he's the one you're rooting for. Well, guess what? He's dead. You know? And that's what Game of Thrones is about. It's about like, subverting your expectations that are developed by the tropes of the genre.
Sure.
And, she was bringing up that, you know, like, of course she had to be raped. Why was she going to be rescued by him? That wouldn't make any sense, you know?
Right.
It's that doesn't happen in this world, you know? And that's kind of like the point that, they were making in that article. I thought that was really interesting. But yeah, I think that kind of covers up most of what we've been doing. Talking about kind of stuff that's going up on the site that, since it's gone back up. We got a news story about the Punisher casting that we talked about. I got that Game of Thrones rape article, the Mr. Robot impressions. We put up our Game of Thrones impressions. I put them in one story, but it's 3 separate videos.
Okay.
We had recorded those all along. They'd been on YouTube the whole time, but we just couldn't put them up on the site.
Right.
Until then. We did a DC TVU or I believe we decided to call it the Arrowverse.
The Arrowverse. I have an upcoming article that I'm gonna publish, if not in the next few days, like sometime next week, where I'm referring to it as Arrowverse.
Cool. I'm all good with that. So, that's what I put up. I know, Kat, you just put up the, season 2 review of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., right?
Yep.
So, and you have another article, I believe, on there as well, but you haven't published it yet.
Yeah, I have a couple more in the works, but I might wait.
So, yeah, we got some more content coming up. Next week, I'm actually going to be gone for, Father's Day, and, my dad's birthday is right around then too, and I'm going up and having a little kind of family reunion. So no podcast next week, unfortunately. But, we will be doing our, Hannibal and Game of Thrones and all those impressions, on video before then. Hannibal ends this season. We might do something else. I don't know. It might be just too much.
I don't know. I think we should do like the video podcast for like shows that like we're really excited about, really enthusiastic about. I don't think we should just start doing them for like random TV shows that come on.
Yeah, no, definitely not.
No, I get what you're saying, but I really like the idea. I like that we've done it so far for the Arrow and Marvel Cinematic Universes. I think those are both worthy of the intense discussion.
Oh, definitely.
Next season, when we have more Arrowverse shows kind of on at once, we might want to do like a This Week in Arrowverse or something.
You know what? That's perfect.
Kind of show next year.
I'm totally all for that. Like, especially with like 3 shows, there'll be a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
So definitely.
I'm looking forward to it. I think the fall season is just going to be a gold mine of things to discuss. So I'm looking forward to it.
And almost none of which are the previews we saw for the for the networks.
That's okay. Maybe there are other people out there who will enjoy those shows, and that's perfectly fine. I know that I feel like there's no lack of shows that I'm interested in watching. There's probably at least a dozen shows I'm going to be watching when the new season starts, so I have nothing to complain.
Yeah. Well, that's the interesting thing is that when I looked at the schedule, I was initially feeling, that little depression you get when you watch the upcoming schedule and you're like, God, almost nothing looks good. And then I just kind of like snapped out of it and realized I have so much stuff to watch right now.
Yeah.
Just stuff that's from last season that's still continuing on. And then, all these new shows coming to Netflix and Amazon and stuff. It's like, it's not that we have less good stuff to talk about. It's just that less of it's on network.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's kind of all it means, and CW's still got lots. They're still the one that's doing good
there's
stuff.
still interesting stuff coming. I mean, there's a new Evil Dead series on Starz. There's Twin Peaks is coming back. I mean,
yeah.
There's still going to be a lot of good stuff to watch. It's just not on the networks. And
yeah, not on the networks.
Yeah.
Fuller House, Brian Fuller's take on Fuller House.
Yes.
Can't wait to see that.
I would totally watch that. For all that I have mixed feelings about Brian Fuller and his work, I would totally watch a Brian Fuller take on Full House.
Mads Mikkelsen adopts the Olsen twins.
Uncle Jesse, will you be my friend? That's my little parody of Mads Mikkelsen. Every time he says friend, it sounds like friend.
Yeah,
because of his accent. That's my joke is always that it sounds so adorable every time he says it.
Yeah.
Like this cannibal, he's basically in Hannibal, his take on Hannibal. It's like, I saw somebody compare it recently to, saying that Anthony Hopkins' take on Hannibal Lecter was like a kind of almost lizard-like, serial killer. Whereas, Mads Mikkelsen's take on Hannibal Lecter is like Lucifer.
Yeah.
It's like he is the devil,
He
you
is
know,
the
like
devil.
in all but name, he is the devil. Like he almost comes across as supernatural. He's so good
Right.
at what he does, you know? And that's what makes him so scary and interesting to watch. But yeah, every time he says friend, he says friend. And it's like, oh, that's so adorable.
That's
I
always going to
forgive
make
your
me
cannibalism.
That's always going to make me think of Princess Bride. Which, I don't know if either of you follow Stephen Amell on Facebook, but he always does, on Mondays, he always has people post memes, and someone, right at the end of Arrow's 3rd season posted a meme where they had, like, the Oliver Dissa wedding, but the proprietor was from the Princess Bride.
Oh.
So Ra's al Ghul was getting really impatient, saying, man and wife! Say man and wife!
That's funny. I don't actually follow Stephen Amell on Twitter. I don't really follow anybody on Twitter. I'm kind of like, I don't know.
You're a Twitter shut-in.
I am. It's kind of like, I guess I kind of like don't get Twitter to a certain degree. Because
I don't get it either, for what it's
it
worth.
wants me to follow all these celebrities. I'm like, honestly, I don't care. So
I mainly enjoy Twitter when like big media events are going on for TV shows and stuff,
right,
and because you get kind of like the snark and commentary of like other kind of editors and stuff, and it's kind of fun talking about that stuff like instantly as it comes up, you know.
yeah, that's true.
I think that's kind of when I enjoy it the most, but I'll have times where I'm like really hooked on Twitter and reading it constantly, and then like literally like the next day I'll just kind of like forget to check it, and then I like won't even bother looking at anything on there for like a month.
I think I only use Twitter mostly when I want to complain to somebody about something. Like when I get like really upset about something.
Dear Stephen Amell, how dare you?
Dare you? It was awful.
Yeah, I saw that when Joss Whedon quit Twitter, which of course made headlines. I saw he commented something like, he's definitely been told you suck more than plenty of times in his life.
I think
he came out and said that he didn't leave Twitter because he was being bombarded with comments, but just because he needed to work, and he just wasn't doing any work because he was on Twitter all the time.
I think Twitter
which makes sense if you've done that stuff. You realize it can take over your life, you know?
I think Twitter just makes it too easy, because when you're annoyed by something, you kind of, your first instinct is you wish you could just tell this person, hey, you just annoyed me. And that person is right there on Twitter, so you can go on Twitter
and now you have the power!
And now you have the power, you know? And I think that's one of the problems with Twitter, actually, is like, it just kind of like makes people too accessible.
Yeah.
I agree.
I remember finding it kind of funny, because I used to follow Damon Lindelof before he quit Twitter. And, you know, we've talked about like Lost and stuff. I know a lot of people kind of hate the ending and stuff. I didn't mind it. It's not what I would have done, but I like appreciated that in a sense, because it meant that it was something I wasn't expecting. And so it's funny how like every time I remember like when Breaking Bad ended, like all I saw on my Twitter feed were all these people like complaining to him, going like, that's how you end a show.
Oh
see?
God.
Like, that's how you do it. And it's like, God,
that right
that
there
would just
is
suck.
why I would never want to be on Twitter if I worked in the industry.
Oh,
My
yeah.
gosh, people have no sense of decency.
No,
Yeah.
they do not. Not at all.
Because it's funny, because even Damon Lindelof is like, that was a great ending, and everyone's like, yeah, why wasn't yours? It's like he can't
What
even
does
be
that
complimentary.
Yeah, what does that have to do with anything? My God.
Yeah.
I know, right? Really. There's nothing to do with it. I really like Jimmy Kimmel meme tweets where he gets the celebrities to like read out loud.
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah,
pretty
those
funny.
are funny.
Yeah.
Did you see the Obama one?
No.
Where it was Obama reading me tweets about him?
No.
Oh my
I didn't
Yeah,
see that.
they did one with Obama actually reading the mean tweets that people have sent about him.
He's got to have like 1 million of those.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. Did you hear about the whole thing? Because Obama, they just had the POTUS Twitter account that opened up. So he actually has a Twitter account you can use now. That's like official for, POTUS, President of the United States. And there were like a few little cute kind of things, like, Clinton had Bill Clinton had a cool interaction with him where he said, does the next president inherit this Twitter account? And then he put like hashtag asking for a friend, which is like a cute little thing, But then like just this vile kind of like racism kind of came out and stuff. And people just started like, oh, he's on Twitter now. Now I can be as vile and cruel and everything as I ever wanted to be towards him. And so people went nuts. And then, like, Secret Service and stuff started knocking on their doors. It's like, what did they think? They think that wasn't going to be so easy for them to find.
Right.
Like, they're going to make, like, death threats and stuff to the president and think that there's going to be no consequence.
Right.
Well, I think a lot of people post a lot of things online without considering the consequence.
Yeah.
Well, like you say, like, people are so used to posting death threats to people that they don't expect that they're going to get in trouble with it.
I don't like what you just did, so why don't you just go kill yourself?
Just go kill yourself. And so I guess it doesn't register that when you say that to the president of the United States, you're going to get...
It's considered a security threat.
You're going to get dragged into a small room and interrogated to hell in that.
Yeah, it's like, you take the most secure political position in the world. The security, like they have an entire agency specifically designed just to protect this one person. And they're not gonna like investigate threats.
Oh my god, one time...
Even if it's as a joke or something, it's like, you still made it. That's how stupid can you be,
I remember one time, I thought this was like the stupidest thing ever. When IGN first introduced their blogs, when blogs were a new thing on IGN, they decided to promote it by holding contests where you'd write a blog about a video game, and then you'd win that game. It was a brand new game at the time. So like, I decided, like one week they decided they were going to give away Super Mario Galaxy. And so I wrote some stupid thing about Mario. I don't even know. I was just like winging it. It was supposed to be some stupid timeline of Mario. And I put zero thought or effort into it. And I just threw it up there. And almost immediately I got a death threat. And I was like, they were gonna find me and kill me and my family or something. I must have spent like a good 5 minutes just laughing at that. Because the whole thing was just that absurd to me.
Yeah.
So funny.
People are morons.
So I'm going to wrap up the podcast now because we're way off topic. It's fun conversation, but so I'm ending it right here. Thank you everybody for listening. Next week there will not be a podcast. I do not think that anybody will mind because next week is E3. So,
yes, of course.
So I think if we did post anything, any articles you have, Kat, either get them up before or wait.
Okay, that's good
because there's going to be no attention on the site.
Sure. Well, if I posted something today, is it okay if I post something tomorrow then?
Oh, it would be fine as long as it's before it starts.
Before
once the
starts.
press conferences start,
Sure.
which I think is on Tuesday?
No, I think the first press conference is on Monday.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, just kind of avoid anything between like Monday and like next Sunday, basically. Okay. It's gonna be like nobody's gonna pay attention.
I'm gonna post hundreds of things on the website Monday.
Yeah, I'll never be more prolific.
I'll never be Nobody's reading this.
So, I know, most of the people that check out our site are going to be kind of involved with video games too. It's our demographic. It's what the Enthusiast Media Networks, started with games and stuff. So, happy E3 to everybody. I'm going to be enjoying it as well.
I'm going to be
so yeah.
I kind of wish. See, now I kind of wish we were a game site because I would really love to discuss E3 with you guys. But that's cool. No podcast next week. I guess I'll live with no podcast, I suppose.
We'll still put up our Game of Thrones impressions on Monday like we always do.
Yes, we have to because it's the last episode of the season, so
yeah,
it's probably gonna...
But that's probably the last thing you're gonna see on the site for a little while.
Right.
We just don't want to get in the way of what's going on with E3.
No, right.
We'll let E3 have its moment.
Especially if megatons start getting announced or something.
Yeah. Megatons.
Maybe there'll be something we can post. Maybe Microsoft will show off the first trailer for that Halo TV series they're supposed to be doing.
Well, if we do get that kind of stuff, then we will post that kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Because that's relevant. So yeah. But yeah, it's going to be a little bit slow for the next week after that. I'm going to be gone and it's E3 is going on, so it's going to be kind of crazy. Then we'll be kind of back to normal after that. So, you could check what we have right now. We do have a lot of content that's just gone up because, of all the time that the site's been down. But that's pretty much it. So, thank you for listening, everybody. I am Tyson. I am your host and editor-in-chief of TV Enthusiast. Joining me today is our writer, Kat Taylor, and our news director, Will Roerick. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Good night.
Bye.
If you would like to voice your opinion, send an email to theweeklyset@tventhusiast.com. TV Enthusiast is a part of the Enthusiast Media Network. Stay tuned to TV Enthusiast and the Weekly Set podcast for more coverage of all of your